what is the incentive of us choosing a very particular coffee? Like, where does that come from? And I think ultimately, like, broadening like the customer base into specialty is only going to improve the lives of the people who produce it.
Mm.
And I think it is ultimately the future of coffee, and it's also good for us. We make money, they make money, and the
Mhm.
customer's happy. Like, usually they can appreciate even just a couple points higher in Q grade, and knowing that there's someone who can now afford to like send their kids to school because they don't have to work on the farm.
Well, welcome to the Make Haste Slowly podcast. Today we have Madison, who is our director of coffee at Medici, and Brady, who manages all of our wholesale accounts and brings the loveliness of Medici to the masses. And they are also married, and they have a kid named Archie that is also helps us out in the warehouse and bags coffee and
Makes some
what's that?
makes a mess.
Yes, it does definitely makes a mess. But it's a great mess, though.
We do not support
kind of
child
curious.
labor. Just need to get that out there. Unless there are children, but
Totally. Well, I'm curious just to start off, like, what's kind of the most memorable moment at Medici or with a cup of coffee that comes to mind? Doesn't have to be the most memorable, just a memorable time.
My like go-to is when I first started college at UT at the University of Texas. I had to take a test to qualify for one of my classes. I was so nervous about it, and I didn't really know any places in Austin to go. And it was at like super early in the morning, like I think 7. Started at like 7. And so I was Googling places that were open, and nowhere was open. And then finally I came across uh, one of our cafes that was on Congress.
Hmm.
And I was like, they're open, you can get coffee there. And I drove up, and all the streets were empty, and it was just the Capitol building at like sunrise. And I pulled up and I walked inside. I think Dean was my barista.
Oh, really?
Whoever it was I believe the manager. Who I'm not sure if he managed that location, but
Mhm.
uh yeah, I got a latte and I think like a muffin or something, and I sat down and I took a sip, and I was just like, took a breath, and I was like, I can enjoy this coffee and I can start my day and everything's gonna be fine. They didn't have any music on in the cafe, which I know drives most people crazy, but it was just like such a clearing moment for my headspace.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, I feel like you took me there. I'm like, I feel like I'm relaxed now too.
Can we restart this day? Let's go back.
And
did you
great?
and did you pass your test?
Yep. I don't even remember what.
Okay. Oh, that's
That's
amazing.
awesome. How old were
about
you,
you,
Brady? Yeah.
Man, it's hard to think about a singular point. This coffee's been integral to my life since I was like probably 20. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, honestly, I remember the first time I like wowed a customer with a cup of coffee when I was serving
Mm.
them. It's like I have so many more fond memories like serving coffee than I do drinking coffee. I don't know why that is, but I just remember the first time I served someone a cup of coffee that they were like really excited about. It was naturally processed Costa Rican coffee that I helped source, that I then was working with on bar and made up someone an espresso, and their mouth like was agape, and like just the excitement that they had that we got to share. And his name was Sam. He's a pretty regular customer, and we gained a rapport, and just like I love the ability for coffee just to connect people generally. like Sam and I have nothing in common outside of the fact that he came to get coffee for me and that I knew him. Other than that, like we'd have never met outside of that space. And it was, just like serving that cup of coffee is just a super memorable moment because it also made me, it's good to feel like you're good at what you do. Like it's a very rewarding thing to have that immediate feedback, and also like for it to be the simple thing. It's just coffee, just a simple thing that could really wow somebody. It was really awesome. So.
That's cool.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that just leads us right into some of the things we were hoping to hear from you guys. Like how'd you get into coffee? Like how'd you get into this? What's your coffee
Madison,
journey been?
how did you get into coffee? Like what was the driving factor for you?
It's kind of two-pronged. I was in high school and we went to a somewhat fancy high school that had its own cafe inside. And the guy I liked really liked coffee. And so I forced myself to drink coffee. And the first cup of coffee I ever had, I remember thinking, this is horrible. But I
Probably was.
And then from there, like my sister like introduced me to Starbucks. And then I met another boy who was also coffee. And he showed me what specialty coffee was. And it was so interesting and complex and multifaceted that I just immediately started learning everything I could from Brady. I was practicing brewing to figure out the best way, because I had a blade grinder, how to brew the best way on a blade grinder. And it kind of just evolved, and I just honed in my skills on brewing. I followed, Matt Berger's Barista Hustle program to gain more like knowledge. And it kind of just evolved as I got older.
When did you have your first job in coffee?
First job in coffee, I think I was 19. And it was in a tiny little town in Tennessee, in Springfield, Tennessee. And it's local. And it's very slow of a cafe, but I just learned how to use commercial equipment and learned what equipment looks like when it's breaking, and then took skills and applied them to a more professional environment.
Wow.
Well, how'd you get all the way from a coffee shop, starting as a barista in a coffee shop, to being the director of coffee?
That's a fantastic question, Michael. A little bit of luck. I think what has really given me the upper hand is just being able to be a leader in environments where there really isn't a lot of strong leadership. And I think that leadership primarily, and just like the drive to want to learn more, has always appealed to people that I, am applying to their company at.
Yeah, you definitely because you came in as a barista, and then you were very soon a manager, and then you started roasting all of our coffee and buying all of our coffee for us. So that's quite the. You definitely hit the leadership part of it. Take the bull by the horns and go for it.
That seems to be my MO at most places, because that is exactly what I did when I managed a rinky-dinky little Italian restaurant. I started as a line cook and became general manager.
Wow.
So why did you want to become a roaster and this side of the coffee industry? Is there anything about it that kind of drew you to it, or things that interest you on this side?
Yeah, to some extent, people do drive me crazy. I would say primarily it's a new challenge, there's more opportunity to learn because on the like customer facing side, traditionally, you kind of cap out at, perfecting your customer service and perfecting extraction and being able to dial in a multifaceted brewing environment. And then you can learn things like leadership skills and like conflict management and those things. But when you're roasting, you have to learn a whole new toolbox of skills. You have to learn how to source coffee. You have to learn how to sell coffee. Like, it's not the fact that it's good. You have to make people want to buy it because traditionally it's, or historically, it's fairly expensive to sell specialty coffee. You also have to learn how to work with a new piece of equipment. You have to learn how to maintain that piece of equipment because it's got a lot of parts to it. And then there's also just like building a brand to some extent. If the brand's already established, like we are, then you have to look at like gaining a bigger like customer base. You have to maintain at least educational materials for customers and for baristas because that is what's going to sell the coffee. It's like no one wants to buy some expensive, fill in the blank product and have no idea why it's special and why it needs to be why you need to pay a premium price for it, because you should know that. Like, if you can explain why it's special, then it's not worth the price tag you put on it.
Wow. So what are you excited about coffee-wise right now? Anything kind of kept your, maybe over the last 6 months or kind of maybe even into the future? Is there anything that you're excited about?
Just like generally in the industry.
Yeah, either way, general industries or coffees that you've brought in that you're really excited about.
I think it's kind of like an interesting point in coffee right now because there's a lot of question on sustainability. There's a lot of questions on what the future of coffee is going to look like from a customer base. Yeah. There's like this kind of tension right now between the washed community and the natural community. And there's
the co-ferment community.
And then now we have all of these experimentals and it's like, okay, well, where does that fall? Because they're not always naturals. Sometimes they're honey. Sometimes they're washed. And it's like, okay, are we going to put those all in a box as experimental? Are we just going to classify them as what other, naturals because we don't like anything other than a traditionally washed coffee? What is the point of selling the coffee? Is it to sell coffee that we drink, or is it to sell coffee to improve like agricultural practices? Is it to sell coffee that's more sustainable? Is it to sell coffee that customers like? What is the incentive of us choosing a very particular coffee? Like, where does that come from? And I think ultimately, like, broadening like the customer base into specialty is only going to improve the lives of the people who produce it. And I think it is ultimately the future of coffee, and it's also good for us. We make money, they make money, and the customer's happy. Like, usually they can appreciate even just a couple points higher in Q grade. And knowing that there's someone who can now afford to like send their kids to school because they don't have to work on the farm.
I think that's why we're so fortunate to have like the coffee power couple here. So y'all are like, I think y'all live, breathe, and drink coffee. Because that's something like with Brady, when you came on, it's like your wealth of knowledge, and then already having the wealth of knowledge from your wife, and then you come in, and it's like it's not that we have two, we almost have like three people, maybe four if we count Archie too. So Oh, he hasn't demonstrated his coffee knowledge yet, which I'm kind of suspect on his coffee knowledge,
mean-
but at least you got him like a toy, some coffee toys to start learning. So, but Brady,
Well,
what about your journey? Like, how did you get here? What was your journey? Was it a girl that got you into coffee?
No, it was wanting to be cool that got me into coffee.
Oh,
That's
uh-huh.
wanting to belong. For
Oh
sure.
yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I've always had an attraction to like hospitality generally.
Hmm.
Um, I have very, very fond memories of going to Waffle House with my dad, and he makes his coffee a very specific way. It's a pink, a blue, two creams. That's because I've made it for him many times.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of was my first introduction to coffee. Was like diner coffee. Just like good old American Joe. That was kind of the first
Mhm.
introduction, and then funny enough, hot chocolates is what got me into specialty coffee. My dad
Mm,
loves to drink hot chocolates. Also, my dad's a key part of this as well. But he loves to drink hot chocolates, and the places that have the best hot chocolates are coffee shops. Always, they always have the best hot chocolates. And that was like my first introduction to like real specialty coffee was happening into a coffee shop and seeing this cool world like with these cool people who were eccentric and different and artsy. And I grew up in a really small town where that was definitely not the norm.
mm,
And I always kind of leaned a little more into that. Always leaned more to like kind of subcultures of the world. Always found that super interesting. And coffee just felt like a really inviting place where I could kind of be myself and
Mm.
say the things I want to say. And there was people there to listen and people there to interact with. And um, they're very like democratizing beverage. Like, I meet people who were, I mean, in Austin more so, people who are startup founders and CEOs and CFOs, or I'll meet artists or people that work in hospitality or people that, you know, live in a bus and travel around the world, right? Like, and I feel like all those people, to a certain extent, have some kind of connection to coffee in some way.
mm.
And those people are able to connect over a beverage, and that's why I keep doing this stuff now. Is it just that kind of democratizing nature of coffee? Yeah, I got my first coffee job in college, um, at like your typical 1990s big couch, big table, like um occasionally we would play like 90s alt music. So sometimes it would feel like, I mean, it's not, this wasn't the 90s when I got my first job, but it very much was harkening back to that era.
Mhm,
And the coffee wasn't great. Um, but I have a really hard time not caring about the things I do. Like I want everything to be the best. Like
mhm.
I see no point in doing mediocre work. Like I want everything I do to be great and I want to put my heart and soul into it. For good or for bad. Sometimes that's sometimes I forget about other things and just focus on that. But yeah, that kind of drove me to learn more about coffee and try different coffee shops in Nashville. I mean, crema is a really big influence in coffee there and was a big influence for me, like learning about farmer relationships and that coffee could come from one place was really cool. Like learning that
Mm.
coffee could, it's not just this homogenous beverage, it can come from one place. And have a farmer attached to it and like people grow the coffee, right? That was
Yeah.
a like a really mind-bending moment for me. Just because you never
Mm.
hear about it. I mean, you never
Yeah.
hear, at least in the past, you never heard about the fact that a human being puts his heart, soul, and effort into this product, and it travels all the way across the world, and thousands of hands touch the coffee before it gets to us. Um, and yeah, and that's just been kind of chasing that ever since.
Mm.
And then met you because of Madison working here, and then met Allison, and just I've always admired Medici. I mean, I always love working for companies that care, that share that same value of like doing things great.
Mm.
Because why do them the other way? It's just not an option. That's not like that's not a thought.
Uh-huh.
It's like no one asked that question. And yeah, I've just loved Medici for a long time and have been really inspired by your cafes. And just now I'm really excited to, bring my story, my history, my experience here and just, yeah, and also work with our commercial customers and work with cafe owners and help them like live their dream and be
Mhm.
great and shoot for greatness and really try to achieve. It's really awesome. So
Is there anything in coffee that you're excited about right now that's caught your eye? Or
I would say similar things to what Madison's talking about.
mm-hmm.
I just think like when I first started on coffee, like if you wanted good coffee, it came from Ethiopia, Colombia, Kenya, Honduras, Guatemala. Those were like probably the 5 main countries that people talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I remember the first time I had a exciting, fun, delicious coffee from Indonesia. I've had awesome coffees from Laos, from Thailand, from India, from Brazil, from Ecuador. I mean, just the world of coffee has gotten so wide and broad. And it's become global. Like specialty coffee is a global product now. Like Madison and I love to travel, and everywhere we go in the world, it's crazy just to be able to walk into a coffee shop and get great coffee. Like, it's just crazy. We're in, and also like to a certain extent, like challenge my preconceived notions about the kind of American market and like thinking that, we're on top, we're the top dog, specialty coffee started here, we've got it all figured out. And then going to other places in the world and being like, whoa, maybe we don't have it all figured out. Like maybe these people have something like important to say and are doing things differently and doing things cool and adapting it to their culture in cool ways. And like, it's just crazy to see that.
Can you give us an
coffee's a
example of that? Like something specific?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, um, so on our honeymoon, we went to Malaysia and
Oh.
yeah,
It was
and
Hmm.
yeah, it was a very delayed honeymoon because thanks COVID. But yeah, so we went to Malaysia and it was just wild. The amount of like delicious food you could get with coffee. Like Malaysian coffee culture is highly influenced by Australian coffee culture. So
Yeah.
like the ability to get world-class food and world-class coffee in the same environment was really interesting and cool. And like their ability to blend those two worlds together and do both things really well, I thought was kind of interesting from a business perspective, but also just fun. I mean, it's fun to, you know, eat delicious food and drink delicious coffee.
Mm.
And then there was another kind of chain of coffee shops that we went to. And I mean, the cafes were almost futuristic in a sense. The company's called The Hub. And the cafes were futuristic. They had 20 different coffees on offer all the time. Um, and their care and attention to detail and the service of the coffee was really great. I mean, it was, custom beautiful ceramics for each coffee that they would serve you, different ceramics for different
Wow.
coffees. Um, and yeah, I mean, just a pure dedication to the product, but there was no pretension on it. I mean, everyone that was in the coffee shop was from wildly different backgrounds. I mean, Malaysia's like very ethnically diverse too. So there was Muslims and traditional Malay people and like Malay Chinese people, South Indian population, and everyone is kind of enjoying the coffee together. Um, and enjoying it in an environment where there's care and attention to detail, but not like this hubris that I feel like the American market used to have. Like we used to be very like, we've got the best and like we're really cool and we wear suspenders and bow ties and like I have a circular mustache and like, and not to say that those things make you not cool, but like there was just a lot of there was just a way less about connecting people with the beverage and just letting the coffee speak for itself. And when you do a great job, you don't have to tell people how great the job is. It just kind of speaks for itself. And that was very much our experience, or at least for me. I think Madison shares that to a certain extent. That was just our experience abroad. Is that like, oh man, like it was just cool and exciting. So.
I will say, I don't think we've ever been anywhere that's been more consistent across the board at every single shop that we went to. It was like, because we went back multiple times. I mean, we would hit like 5 cafes in a day, and most of those were repeat cafes. And every single time, no matter what time of day, the coffee that we got was exceptional. It was always fantastic. Milk, always the same temperature. Shot, always dialed in. Pour over, phenomenal. Like
Hmm.
it's the attention to detail was incredible. And I think we think that we're every shop that we work at in the US, we're like that. Until you go somewhere that is like that. And it's
Hmm.
like the standard to open a shop is always much higher than, you know, the little like accountant that has a dream of opening a coffee shop and has no idea what they're doing. And they just let their staff, you know, do whatever they think is right. Like
Hmm.
it's more cohesive, I would say.
Wow, I think I want to go to Malaysia now.
No way.
It's awesome.
'Cause that is something I've noticed in the U.S. specifically, especially with restaurants, is that coffee's never at the forefront of your experience. Usually, it's you have this really nice meal and then a cup of coffee at the end of the nice meal, but there really wasn't a lot of thought put into that cup of coffee, which is somewhat unfortunate because that's the last taste you're going to leave that restaurant with. Where it would be nice if you would, end that experience with something that was, a very nice, high quality coffee, and you walk away with that. But
But are people even drinking coffee at restaurants anymore? Like, I don't.
hmm.
When was the last time you ordered a cup of coffee at a restaurant, Michael? Like, it, it's like not a thing. It's like not a part of the culture, in my opinion. Do y'all drink coffee at restaurants?
Breakfast restaurants, but I always ask who the roaster is and decide how many creams I want based on that.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm for it. Like, is there a way to bring that back?
Maybe I think too. Most of the places we're going to are like in Malaysia are brunch restaurants, so it's like pancakes, avocado toast. Like that's what pays the
Mm,
bills there. Um, and it's just a more relaxed culture. I mean, it's a hangout culture. People like to hang out. They like to get lunch for 2 hours and
mm,
kind of barred off from work and not like they like to. And there's a big emphasis on connection and being really connected to others. And yeah, there's just a little higher. It's a more connected culture than I think a lot of American culture is, especially in that morning time where it's kind of we're very focused on work and prepping for work, and we don't often take times to kind of engage with the people around us. Um, and yes, it's a cultural difference. And yeah, we didn't drink much coffee at night there. I would say that was not. I mean,
mhm.
a lot of the cafes there are open very late, which was interesting. They're like open till 8, 9 o'clock at night, and there are lots of people drinking coffee at that time. But yeah, I have my caffeine tolerance is lowered over the years. So if I drink a cup of coffee after like 5 o'clock, it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like pulsing
Right.
with excitement. So
I feel like it used to be part of our culture, though. Like, I remember, like, when I was a kid, the older people having coffee after dinner. Like, it
Mhm.
was, it was just what they did. And I don't know, like, what happened to that. I mean, I agree with you. I also can't handle I drink half calf on the regular now. So, but, but I mean, a nice, delicious decaf as we have after dinner, like that being a regular thing, like, I want to bring it back.
That's something I've always been thankful for. You do a good job with the decaf side of our of our offerings. Like, I even like to drink. I always have an espresso at 2 o'clock, and so sometimes I would just get a decaf because it's more about the ritual of it. And that's I think decaf's come a long way since like the 90s. It's probably had the most growth to it. Just you didn't think about having if you decaf was just something you had. It wasn't like you thought it was going to taste good at all. So. Uh,
yeah, and to that point, Allison and Michael, I think that decaf is like continuously getting better, and there's a huge push in the market for better decaffeinated beverages. And I feel like specialty has kind of had decaf to appease an audience and not had decaf because we like decaf.
mm,
And I think that could be a kind of a push for restaurants, like when you can bring a decaf to the table and they don't know it's a decaf. Because I've had a few decaf coffees recently that I've been like, whoa, like I have if I wouldn't have known this was a decaf, I would have never thought it was. Just the coffees are expressive and vibrant, and yeah, they just don't taste decaffeinated. And I think there's a lot of want for that in a market, and a definite push from producers and importers to make that stuff happen. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Speaking of like tasting, being able to taste or not taste whether it's decaf. Okay, one question that I really wanted to ask you guys was, how have you developed your palate over the course of your coffee career so that you were able to identify all these like whack flavors and aromas and like, is that is that an inherent gift that you have, or is it a skill that you've developed? I would love to hear more about that from both of you.
Yeah, I would say I'm trying to not sound arrogant. I would say
Just go for it. Just go for it.
I've probably consumed more coffee than the majority of people my age. And to start, I would say like you need to drink a lot of coffee. You need to try a bunch of, different foods and stuff and be able to articulate why you don't like it. But once you have drink so much coffee, okay, you immediately are able to tell, I like this, I don't like this. And then from there, you can begin to articulate, okay, I don't like this because it's a little too acidic for me. I don't like this because it's got this fermenty aftertaste. I don't like this because it's boring. Like, you got to figure out what that is. And then from there, you have to again articulate, okay, I said the word boring. What does that mean to me? Does it mean nutty? Does it mean chocolatey? Does it mean flat? And then you have to drink even more coffee. And and you just have to take it just step by step. And it's like, okay, like I figured out what this means to me. Okay, take it a step further. And it's not so much like, you can train yourself overnight. It's like a language, like it's a learning process. And you continue to learn more and more as you get older and as you're in it and experiencing it more and more. You're able to take that next step and get that next little bit of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, like it becomes more like the ability to articulate sounds like it becomes more like granular over time.
Yeah.
And but you also mentioned like tasting food. Like how important is that to actually have just this like array of like food experiences, because then that correlates with what you're tasting in coffees?
So your palate is not a coffee exclusive skill. Like there is a very distinct, being able to articulate coffee particulars because, first it's coffee, it's always going to taste like coffee, like Josh says. But then from there you have to overcome like that initial, this tastes like coffee. What else do I taste? And when you are focusing on like a multifaceted approach to your palate development, it's going to become easier to find the words that you're looking for. And so when you, for example, when you've only eaten green apples for your entire life, and then you are looking for words to describe a coffee, and it's familiar to an apple, but it's not quite there. It's like, okay, well, have you had a yellow apple? Have you had a red apple? It's like, okay, like that's where these like little variations start to come in. It's like, it's reminiscent of this thing. Okay, can it be something related to that? Can it be a purple grape? Can it be a green grape? Can it be the grape skin? I don't know if you did this as a child, but I would eat the grape skin separately.
That
And it
took a
has a
lot
very
of time.
different taste. Yeah, it tastes quite a bit different than the actual grape.
Yeah.
And it's like when you
Huh.
say a coffee is nutty, what is the first nut that comes to your mind? You know,
Oh,
it's like, is it an almond? It's like some people would say a peanut. Some people would say a Brazil nut. It's like there's these like groups of things that we have together.
Mhm.
And if you're only limiting yourself to what you particularly like or what you're biased to, it's like when someone else is communicating what they're tasting, it's most likely not what you immediately think of.
Hmm.
And so to just have like a broad spectrum of more specific words to use means you have to try a variety of drinks. You have to try a variety of foods because your palate is anything that you have ever tasted.
Right. Huh. Well, what about you, Brady? Like, how has your palate like changed or developed over your
For
career?
sure, yeah. I would say like curiosity is what drives like palate development. Like you have to want to learn. Like there's a certain you just have to have a desire to grow your palate, I think. Because it can be, I mean, like honestly, specialty coffee at the place it is now, it is pretty easy to get like good coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And to get from like the point of good coffee to understanding why the coffee is good and understanding the specific parts and pieces that make the coffee good or make a coffee great, you have to, like Madison said, taste a lot of coffee, but every single coffee that you taste, analyze it. Um, which kind of, ruins some of the magic of coffee, to be honest. Like it's kind of the more I've developed my palate, the more annoying it is to like go get coffee somewhere. Because it's hard to remove like, or even make coffee for myself. It's hard to remove like me seeing all the imperfections and just enjoying the coffee for the coffee's sake. Um, so forewarned,
Mm.
people that want to, kind of increase their palate skills, it will um, definitely change your relationship with coffee in a lot of ways.
Wow.
But yeah, I always like tell people to just go to a more organic grocer like Central Market or Whole Foods that has a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, and just go buy a bunch of stuff and try it. I mean, it's just you have to start trying and go on that journey and kind of set yourself up to learn and explore. And then comparative tastings are great. Like it's really hard to develop your palate if you're just tasting one coffee one way. Like it's so you gain so much knowledge by tasting multiple coffees side by side. Um,
Yeah.
and then just participating in like other coffee companies, events, and like opportunities for education. Like it's, coffee companies, regardless of if they want to say it or not, tend to buy coffees that are within a certain scope, right? They like everyone will tell you that, it's, we source only the best coffee and the finest coffees in the world. And like, I think we do a great job when we do that, for
Mm.
sure, but we definitely have preference.
Mhm.
That's true of everyone. Everyone has a preference, and your preference is dictated by, your cultural background, the food you eat, the food you consume. Like, yeah, it's influenced by your family history. I mean, just where you come from. All of those things are super important. So it's really easy to kind of, like Madison said, kind of put the blinders on and kind of really get focused on this one thing. And you just have to go try coffees from all over the place, all over the world, and from as many roasters as you can. And just try to comparatively taste as much as possible. Um, and yeah, I also think too, like when you learn more about coffee, like you learn the hard work that farmers put into coffee, that roasters put into coffee, that baristas put into coffee, that the whole supply chain puts into making this thing happen. Like it's kind of a miracle that coffee tastes good at all. Like, there's just so many moving pieces
Yeah.
of this coffee puzzle, and it's, they all have to fit together perfectly, and it all has to happen seamlessly for us to get a great cup of coffee. So I think once you learn that about coffee, it becomes so much easier to care about coffee. Because you see the work that others do, and it inspires you again to kind of push yourself to do the work and to do the hard work of caring about every single thing you do.
Right.
Yeah, I think you, like Madison, I think you've done a good job of like having a pretty big rainbow of flavors of coffee. Like even the idea of I think it's the Brazils. You don't usually don't like Brazils. But I think that's the part of like being a good taster. Is being able to, you might not like that specifically, but you can find a good coffee that fits that person's palate. It's like I really enjoy that Brazil, peanut butter and jelly kind of, it's a fun coffee. So it's a kind of a skill to be able to also look past your own preferences, to like be able to kind of offer a wide variety of coffees for people. Is it still hard for you to order the Brazils?
It's not as hard. But it is probably the most challenging thing I faced as a green buyer. And I did make it very intentional when I took the position to not do what I like. Because one, most of the customer base doesn't like what I like. And then two, because I've been to so many roasters and I get 2, 3, 4 of their coffees and they all taste the same. It drives me insane. Even if I like it, I'm like, it's like, a bunch of perfectly processed naturals, and I love all of them, but they all taste like grape juice. Like, I want something different. I want a different experience. And I'm certain that, everyone feels that way. Like, you have an offering of 14 single origins, and they all taste like chocolate nuts, or they all taste like cherry. It's like, okay, why would I spend time looking at what you have to offer if I know they're all going to taste the same? I'm just going to pick the cheapest one, and not really learn to appreciate where it came from, what its story is, why this particular process that's only done at this farm is important. Like, if you don't have variety, then there's no incentive to care.
Yeah, I like that. I think even like was it Saying Freud that kind of pushed us to do the different, like the washed compilation or subscription or whatever it was, like kind of putting them together in smaller bags. I thought that was a really kind of a fun, good idea.
That was my idea.
Oh, that was your idea. Okay, yeah, it was you.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
Yeah, I thought that was great. It's like kind of like grouping experiences for people to kind of taste. It's a good way to expand your palate and learn about coffee.
I feel like there's just so much humility in that perspective that you're bringing up to be able to recognize, like, this is what I like, and there is so much good quality experience that might not be my particular preference, and to be able to identify that and bring it intentionally, I feel like shows humility and also like a commitment to excellence. And it's anyway, I just really appreciate that about you and the way that you approach
Well,
work.
I'm glad that you said it kind of the way that you phrased it, because I think one of the things in the back of my mind that I associate with that as well is, like, at least in the US, we kind of are like a beacon for like openness and accepting of different people from different backgrounds. Like, you can have like a master's in engineering and you can be a barista who knows how to really dial in their coffee and just not think about anything on the job. You can be a part of whatever subculture you want to be a part of. You can live your life. You can express yourself. And then we have this like hard and fast line of, well, you can only drink washed coffees if you come here. You can only enjoy the best hyper exclusive natural coffees from Ethiopia here. Like, you can't like Brazils if you're our customer. Like, we're not going to serve that to you on espresso. Like, this kind of like hard and fast culture that we have with very particular coffees, I feel like doesn't match, the openness. And like, I feel like the original concept of the American coffee shop was to get people together, for various reasons, political conversations, whatever. But the unifying force was the coffee. And when we create like this division and this attitude of I'm better or this is better, like there's no room for anything else, is very contradictory to that.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
I love and I feel like you brought the weirdness with the co-ferments, so that's been so much fun. Because like when you're in coffee, we've all drank a lot of coffee from a lot of different places, and for me, like co-ferments were just even and the anaerobic that we had too. That was Allison's favorites. It's just it's just so much fun. I feel like I got to play again in coffee. I think that was just, having a watermelon is like, how did that get in there? They get like a syringe and put like little watermelons in there, I mean, that's how crazy it is. And that's just been kind of a fun new thing. I know for me, at least, is that those coffees that you've brought in have been really just I can't believe it every single time I drink it. So
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
it's so cool, the like level of consistency with what, like we're bringing what we bring, and it is so good. And these new things are so fun. And I feel like, I don't know, there's something that just feels like such a beautiful combination, like to have the consistency that people expect, but also like, woo, like let's get out of our comfort zone. I think it's so brilliant. Okay, can I just ask one like fun question, just because?
no fun questions.
Please. Like, what's the nastiest coffee you've ever had? Like, what did it taste like?
I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but the defective lot of decaf that we got, by far the nastiest I've ever had. And the deeper we got into the lot of the coffee, the worse it got. It was so nasty. It tasted like kind of like gasoline, and it was just full of defects, kind of like dirt. It was just like, it looked like what it smelled like. It was disgusting.
Cup of dirty gasoline. Oh,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I think they reimbursed us for that whole entire.
Yeah,
like,
we sent it back. Yeah.
we sent it back. You guys didn't get that. We
did.
I remember you showing me, and like just looking at the green coffee just looked really, quite amazing.
Yeah, a completely different color, smell, look. Like, it was all kinds of wrong. There were so many red flags, and I was like, I'm gonna roast it just to be sure. And that was like, yep, no, it's
very bad. Oh, what about you, Brady?
Yeah, that one's up there. That's probably top 3. I had an importer partner that I used to work with, and I had them specifically send us coffee that was defective, so we could do like an educational exercise about coffee defects.
That's cool.
And yeah, he sent me. There's like a really common defect in Mexican coffee called phenol defects, and it tastes like Band-Aids, like just rubber and nasty and like glue and just they're just horrendous. And yeah, it was. I think it's really important for people to taste coffee like that, just because it's kind of, pretty easy, especially again, like coffee's so great now that it's like important to remember like how wrong it can go. Yeah, because it can really, really go wrong, and it's not. The coffee's just undrinkable at that point. There's no saving it there.
Sure. Yeah.
Cream and sugar on Band-Aids doesn't taste good. So.
Yeah. No, I can see how that would like calibrate your spectrum of flavor, right? Like, if the worst coffee you've ever had was just like burnt, then that's like one level. But then like, there's more.
Oh yeah.
There's dirty gasoline and rubber bands. Oh, that's crazy. What about you, babe?
I always have this story that we had a coffee from Indonesia, and it just tasted like diesel fuel. And the
Wow.
whole the idea behind it was like it was probably the ship next to like some diesel fuel, or like whenever it was in port, it got some diesel on it or something. But it was pretty rancid and very distinctly diesel fuel, and we were quite amazed at how bad it was. So,
Wow.
anyways,
And all our listeners can just feel so confident that none of that nastiness will ever get to you
None.
because they would
Zero.
have to go through these three first.
well, as we kind of wrap things up, one thing we like to ask everyone is just like a recommendation from you. And it can be from everything from food location to life to how you guys manage, uh, you know, a kid and business and life. What's something that kind of sticks out to you that you want other people to know, or that you would like to share with other people, or a famous quote or something?
Not to sound like a broken record, but I like to say, taste the rainbow, experience it. Not just with coffee, there's a lot that can be learned from other people, different backgrounds, different experiences. And even if you think they're wrong, it's important to listen. Because you will more than likely come back with something, even if it's just a better understanding of that person or that coffee or that experience, just be open.
I like that.
Mhm.
How about you, Brady?
Yeah. Think coffee wise, just like Madison said, like it's important to not, like I have a friend of mine who refuses to look at the label on a bag when he gets coffee. Like he likes people to send him coffee in blank bags. So he has no preconceived notions of what the coffee should taste like.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so, and Madison did this for me for Christmas. So gift for your partner idea, everyone out there. She bought me like, what was it, like 12 different coffees, right?
I think it was 14. It was supposed to
14
be
different
12.
coffees. But,
We got 12,
um,
13.
yeah, I mean, more coffee is always better. So I'll take 14, 12. But she would set the coffee up for me in the morning when I was making our morning cup of coffee, and I had no idea what it was. And I just put it in and ground it up, and it was just a really exciting like sensory experience, because it's like because especially when you work on coffee for a long time, or you consume any beverage or consume food for a long time, it's really easy to like narrow in your focus and I'm like, this is gonna taste like this. I know it's going to. Um, and there were lots of surprises in what she gave me, and it was fun just to like not think about it and just enjoy it for what it is and enjoy the moment. So trying to experiences, enjoy your moments, and then something to do, or like something to enjoy like externally is also I love the book Unreasonable Hospitality. That's just one of the books that I usually hate hospitality books. I hate copy books. I hate business books just because it's so general. And so, just oftentimes the information is not super helpful. And I feel like that was one of the few books I've ever read where it's written by someone who really loves hospitality and really cares. And it just has applications to everything. And it's a really inspiring story to hear how someone how a small group of people like made something really awesome. So
Wow.
That's
Okay.
cool.
And what was it called? Unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna
Unreasonable
mark that one
hospitality.
down.
That's cool.
I am so happy to hear that this coffee romance endures. I feel like that could be a whole nother podcast, coffee romances. And how they endure. Thank you
Well, just
both
think
so
about how many
much.
relationships started in coffee shops too.
I know.
Like you guys met, and that's kind of where our stars started, and it's such a beautiful space. So.
Better than bars.
Sorry, baby, you were gonna say something.
Better than bars. No, I was just gonna say, I think especially I'm just reminded today of how much integrity y'all bring to this work. And I hear from both of you just like the deep love of learning and how that informs and I feel like drives so much of the excellence that you're wanting to bring to other people. And I just really respect it and appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
I agree. You guys are
You're
awesome.
You guys are
Yeah.
awesome too. Just don't
Yeah.
you know.
Well, thank you
All
all
right.
for coming out to make case slowly. And,
You're about to say coming
I
out
was
to
about
the
say
shores.
Yeah. Sorry, that's my other podcast. Thanks for coming to make case slowly, and we'll see you guys soon. And thank you, Madison and Brady. It's awesome.
Yep.
We'll see y'all.
All right, thanks. Bye.